Hey guys, Matty B here. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to another video. Hope you enjoyed part 1 of this parent's perspective on autism. Part 2, as I mentioned at the end of the last video, I'm going to focus on the next part of my upbringing where I go back into the mainstream school, mixing back in with neurotypical students, what that was like for me, and out in the real world as well, where I had to learn from basics all about the unwritten social rules which the neurotypical person would take for granted, but because my brain's wired differently, I didn't understand those rules growing up, so my mum had to show me all of those to help me understand. So sit back, relax, see what my mum says about this part of my life. If any of it resonates with you or someone you know who's raising a child with autism, hopefully this helps you with your caring for an autistic child. If it helps one person, then it's done its job. Perfect. So we'll check out that interview, see what she has to say. So, hi Mum, hope you're well. Part 2 of this 3-part series now. And after part 1, now at the point where I'm about between the ages of 10 and 16, I'm in mainstream school, and I'm starting to learn to do things outside of school that the neurotypical would take for granted. And by this point you were understanding you were getting a bit stressed and overwhelmed because of my autism and how intense I was. Mm-hmm. So you needed to reach out for help.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was your dad that persuaded me to look for help because, of course, he was in work and I was at home taking all the family stress. So we reached out to Barnardo's, and there's a charity that helps families as well as parents, children as well. So caseworker came to our house and they suggested having a link family. And one was introduced to us, and they were lovely people, as you know. So started off with an afternoon with them or a day with them, and then progressed to a weekend for every month. So you had activities with them that you really enjoyed, and back home with us, it was a family that we could do our own thing, relax, the stress taken out of our family, and doing things what your brothers wanted to do. And that was really beneficial to us. And they were part of our lives for a long time, as you know. And even when you didn't need them anymore, we still kept in touch with them. And they were just great. And Barnardo's as well is a really good charity for older siblings, can talk to them. Because sometimes they can feel embarrassed at their brothers or sisters' behaviour, and it's okay to be embarrassed. It doesn't mean they're mean, but they can talk these issues out with this particular charity, and I can highly recommend them.
That's a very important point, and I'll put a link in the description for this video to Barnardo's, so anyone watching can check them out. Massive help, and as you say, I think the most important thing is that the families can talk about the issues they're having growing up with someone with autism, that they don't know how to react, or they don't know if they're doing it correctly, and Barnardo's can talk it through with them.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and by this time, of course, I've finished my education in the Linden School, all my special educational needs met, and I'd learned all the basic social rules. However, I now need to put that into practice in the real world.
That's right, because you were lucky enough to live in a quite close, and you had 4 or 5 friends at your own age, mainstream, and I allowed you to go out in the close to practice all your knowledge that you learned through play.
Yeah, so playing like hide and seek, playing ball games, hockey and things like that.
Yes, right. Sometimes you get the rules wrong and sometimes you didn't. But sometimes when you did, they'd laugh at you and say, Matthew, you don't do things like this. This is the correct way. And that's all part of learning. You didn't really mind because you didn't have much embarrassment. But you took on board what they suggested, and you cracked on.
Yeah.
And that was all through all the summer holidays, that you did that, and that was really beneficial.
Yeah, 100%. And looking back, I'm really grateful that you trusted me and my brother, and my brother being 3 years older than me, going because I'm really close with him now, even to this day. You took a step back and allowed him to take me out into the close, or we'd even go up the park or into the woods, build dens, and have that life experience like that as well.
Yeah, and what was nice as well with the children in the close who are now the same age as you and you get on really well with, they took you for what you were. To them, you weren't no different. And that was really, really good. That was really beneficial to you. But going back to your younger brother, did you realise that he really sometimes used you, because when he was in school, he's a little so-and-so, and he'd say, "Oh, sir, I couldn't do my homework. My autistic brother ate it." Well, that's outrageous. You never did. He just didn't do his homework. But it's nice that you got a good rapport with this particular brother. That's really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I was growing up as well, whether it was in the home with the kids in the close, or if we went for a day out, something else which you took for granted but I didn't really understand was that everyone has their own personal space.
Yes, so you progress now to understanding the world around you, especially, say, for instance, if an adult is wearing, I don't know, say Peter Pan or a cartoon logo on their t-shirt, and you recognise it and you think, I can talk about that, I know about that. So you would run right up to them and start a conversation, and I'd have to go up to them and say, I'm really, really sorry, my son doesn't understand about personal space. I'm still teaching him. And I would pull you away, and we would discuss the importance of personal space, and they would say, oh, that's perfectly okay, but that's how you learn. You're doing it while it's actually happening, because once you go home, in your little mind, it's gone.
Yeah, exactly, because I think it's the same for pretty much all people on the spectrum or autistic, and pretty much anyone that's neurodiverse. We're visual thinkers, visual learners, so unless we're there doing role play or seeing it demonstrated, we don't really take it in, and we don't really understand when the rules are given to us just in verbal form.
That's right. I mean, like in all mainstream life, if you've got a new job and you're unsure, how many times does the expert say, well, go and practice in front of a mirror? If you have read a speech that's really important that you're going to deliver to an audience, practice in front of a mirror and get it perfect. So that's normal, I think, really, as a tool that we use.
Yeah.
That's as well what helped me as well was the Autistic Society. Was a great help. I would ring them, and it was volunteers on the phone who went through what I went through, and I would say, well, how did you manage this, and how did you manage that? And what was beneficial as well was attached to the Linden School. Once a month, the mums would have a coffee. We'd have a room at the top of the school, and we would have a chat, because we all knew what we were going through. We all, although all our children were developing in different stages, we all knew what we were all going through, and we'd bounce off each other while having a coffee, and that was a great help.
Well, yeah, so I'll put a link in the description for the Autistic Society as well, because it sounds like that could help someone who's watching as well. And yeah, and as we've mentioned, I'm now in mainstream school, but as you said in part one, normal mainstream school where it's like big classes, 30, 40 students, wouldn't have worked for me. That would have been too overwhelming for me. So I went to a private school where it was much smaller class sizes, about 10, 15 per class, much more comfortable for me. And the headmaster, Mr. Evans, I remember being a big help to me whilst I was there.
Yeah, he was headmaster. He was headmaster. He was also head of the drama department, and he used to put on plays all through education, and that was also a good part of learning and doing, because you were in a play and you were acting out a part that you were told to act out in the play, and that was beneficial to you as well.
Yeah, definitely, because it, as I've touched on in previous videos, unless we make a conscious effort, we can stick to the same tone of voice and appear very placid while we're talking. But if you're acting and doing a role that's been made up for you, you can practice doing different tones of voice and sounding a bit more natural.
Yeah, that's quite correct.
Yeah, and by the time I got into Kingsmonkton, there was a small group of friends, about 4 or 5 of us, that got quite close. We had a good friendship between the 4 or 5 of us, which carried on into Kingsmonkton as well, didn't it?
Yeah. You had a birthday party, and I took lots of photos. I can remember taking lots of photos, and what you did, I think you had soft play and lunch afterwards. And I took lots of photos, and I sent that into the school, and that's a group with your friends. That was all talked about, of what you did, how they had a nice time, what they ate, and that's all part of the structure education as well. Is sitting in the group and allowing somebody else to have their point of view while you sit and listen until it is your turn to talk. And that's a big learning curve as well.
Yeah, because definitely, because that's something else I've touched on in a previous video, where if someone on the spectrum or with autism, if we start talking about something that we enjoy or we're passionate about, there's no stopping us, literally, and it can be hard for the other person to get a word in edgeways. So I've had to learn how to structure my conversations better to allow the other person to talk about themselves as well, rather than it just being all about me.
Yeah, because you did have quite a few, 3 or 4 friends in the Lindens, which you got on very well with. And of course, as you've grown up, people go their separate ways, and you've lost touch, and that's evolution. You've got your own set of different friends now from your hobbies and work, and that's how it should be.
Yeah. Another thing then I know we want to touch on is, it sounds stupid looking back now, because comedy is one of the main things I watch on TV now, whether it's Netflix or any other streaming service that's available. But when I was younger, I didn't really understand why people laughed.
You never got humour. You said, why are they laughing, Mum? I just don't understand. Because you couldn't understand the concept of humour until I introduced you to Mr. Bean. And of course, that's visual. It's like a comic.
Yeah.
In frames. And that was the first time that I could see you sit in a chair, not be a whirlwind, sit quietly and understand what you were seeing and having a real good laugh, and really get a lot of joy out of a programme. And that was the first time you understood the concept of humour, and then that progressed from that, and that was fabulous.
Yeah.
Because the one time you said to me when you were very little, Mum, you've taught me how to behave, and you've taught me how to understand. Now can you teach me how to laugh? And I couldn't until you saw Mr. Bean, and you really laughed, and that was great.
Yeah. So that's part 2 done of this 3-part series. As you heard from my mum there, I had to mix back in with the mainstream school, but because of my autism, couldn't go to a big normal school with 30, 40 pupils per class. That would have been too overwhelming for me, so I had to go to into private education because that was more suited to my comfort level. And going out into the real world, had to learn how to cue, how to be more diplomatic when I'm saying things, don't be so honest, and lots of other things. So hopefully that helps you guys watching if you've got an autistic child or know someone who has. Part 3 will move on to next stage of my upbringing in the late teens. So I'm becoming an adult, starting to get some independence for myself, getting into the jobs market, and that can be a challenge in itself, as I'm sure you know, if you have autism or know someone who has. So we'll wait for that video to come out, and I'll see you there.